What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John, and with me still, because we're actually doing this back-to-back recording sessions, is Daniel Terry. How are you still doing?
I'm still doing great, man. I've had some space dust, so I'm in my happy place, I'd like to say, in my creepy basement with my creepy couch and my Godzilla posters. I love it.
I just finished the KBS Maple Mackinac Fudge from the last episode with Red Beach, and I'm about to try this Rojo. I don't know what it is. Mark from Nothing More sent me this in one of his packs of beer that he sent me. And I assume it's going to be a sour. It looks like a tart. It's kind of got a ruby red flavor, Ruby Rojo, if you're into, rancid. So let's figure out what this is together, shall we?
You made such a good splash sound on that was so great. I feel like I'm really tasting it with you.
It's not really a sour, but it's definitely tart. I feel like I get a little bit of vanilla in there, and like cherry.
Interesting.
It's definitely some kind of a, what the fuck is that? Yeah, it's definitely like a cherry or something. That's interesting. I actually don't mind that. It almost doesn't really taste like a beer so much, or it almost is like a cider-esque kind of a flavor, like a little bit sweet, kind of bubbly. Yeah, it's interesting. I'll have to send him a text to be like, so what the fuck is this again? It's half the fun of trying new beers sometimes when you get some of these things. You're like, what is this?
Yeah, seriously. It's like, what is going on here? I can't do the sours, man. I thought I liked sours for a while, but every sour beer that I've tried has just tasted like ground up Smarties.
See, the thing for me is
never hits the way it should.
Yeah, I typically am not a sour fan either. There's been a few that Mark has sent to me that I've actually enjoyed. I know he's a big sour and like a Goza fan. Like I actually sent him a photo today of I think it was the Royal Oak Brewing put out a cranberry Goza. And I sent him a photo of that and he was like, sounds delicious. And I was like, yeah, I figured that'd be up your alley. I looked at that and I was like, gross. Like cranberry. I almost actually picked up a peppermint porter that sounded really interesting. And yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to the Christmas flavors. I know in the last episode we talked about the Rochester Mills holiday pack that I picked up of the milkshake IPAs. Not milkshake IPAs, the milkshake stouts. And definitely one of those things where the peppermint starts coming out in a lot more beer. Mark actually had found and sent me a photo of a pumpkin porter. And I'm pretty big, like in the pumpkin beer season when that's the season. I don't think I've ever encountered a pumpkin porter in any of my beer trying during that season. Have you ever found one?
No, I've never had a pumpkin porter.
How do you think that would be?
Really heavy. Like
I feel like the sweetness would almost kind of offset the heaviness of the porter flavor. I don't know. I'm pretty intrigued.
It sounds to me like, porters, as we all know, were like the Black Sabbath of beer, right? So like
thick and sludgy.
Thick and sludgy, and you love it. But like, I do. If you listen to it too long, you kind of fall asleep. So like, it's a good falling asleep. But like, yeah, I'm really not sure. Like, would drinking a pumpkin porter be like eating too much pumpkin pie?
So speaking to that, randomly I was at Target the other day and was looking for my wife, who said she was going to be in this section of the store and definitely was not. And I happened to see, I guess, Ben and Jerry's makes like ice cream bites, like dough bites or something.
Interesting.
I don't know if you've seen those, but I saw one and I was like kind of looking at it, and then I happened to look at this pretty bare shelf where there was like 3 little pints left, and one was a pumpkin cheesecake, Ben and Jerry's.
Huh.
And I picked that up going like, all right, this will probably be really good. Took a bite of it. Holy shit. It is fucking delicious. Secondly, if you happen to have a thing called Freddy's anywhere, whoever is listening, or Dan, it's basically like a Culver's, but not Culver's. So
yeah, we don't have that here. We have just Culver's.
Okay, so basically it's like Culver's. It's an offshoot of the same thing, but they have these things called concretes, which are basically like a Blizzard-esque kind of thing. And they had one when Bridge and I had an off day together that was a pumpkin pie one, complete with little pie pieces in it, and that was fucking delicious. And I was like, I shouldn't be eating this at 11 a.m. with my lunch, but fuck it.
Sorry, it's just so funny to me to hear you explaining to the listeners what concretes are.
Well, I'd never heard of that phrase.
Really? Is that regional? I wonder.
I don't know.
We have concretes. Yeah, I mean, concretes have existed pretty much, and of course, we're not talking about roadways here, but like actual like ice cream.
Is it ice cream or is it a custard? That was the other thing Bridget and I kept talking about. We're like, is it concrete? Like, what is it?
It's a custard. I mean, it could be either or. It's more. Okay. It's more a custard. It depends on where you go. So like Ted Drew's here in St. Louis is very famous for having custards or custard concretes and stuff. We even called them concretes. Even Dairy Queen was calling them concretes for a while there. So that's very interesting. I had no idea that was maybe more of a Midwest thing.
Yeah, I don't know,
because I mean we use it like interchangeably with any kind of ice cream treat. So like a blizzard from Dairy Queen is a concrete. You know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's. I mean, typically it's got to be something that has like chunky bits in it. You know.
Yeah.
Like that. But yeah, that's interesting. I learned a new thing tonight.
That's what we're here to do on the podcast, is tell you about delicious things, whether they're healthy for you or not.
We should tell people about Kill or Be Killed. It's awesome.
Dude. So obviously, if you're tuning in, you've already seen who the guest is. It's Ben Koller. Again, regionally, depends on how you want to say it. So I'll just appease either dialect. I don't know how West Coasters would say it, but here in the Midwest or East Coast, that's roughly how you're going to say it. You'll hear all about that. But drummer for Mutoid Man, Converge, and Kill or Be Killed, which is actually why he's on the show, to talk about their upcoming record, Reluctant Hero, out November 20th via Nuclear Blast Records. Man, this is a fucking killer record. Something Dan and I have been saying, and I think I sent a Facebook and a tweet out about this. There wasn't going to be a whole lot of metal on my top 10 records this year, honestly. I steered my top 5 in that direction as best I could when we did that conversation with the Lightworker dudes. But I got to say, 2020 is ending super strong with some really phenomenal releases. I'm really sorry that people don't get to hear these records, like the new Hatebreed, the Dark Tranquility, this Kill or Be Killed record. I mean, Jesus Christ, most of these actually have ended up in Dan's, top records of this year. I honestly think this is going to be in my top 10. It might even sneak into, if I'm going to be, actually ranking records, this might be in my top 5. It's that good.
My top 10 would have changed significantly had I heard this record before we did that.
Yeah. I think the thing, if you're not familiar with Kill or Be Killed, it is a quote-unquote supergroup. It has Troy Sanders from Mastodon, Greg from Dillinger Escape Plan, Max Cavalera from Soulfly. Ben's now in the band. He didn't do the first record, but he was the touring drummer for this after the record was released. I really liked the first record, and what was kind of interesting is leading up to us getting this interview opportunity, I had really been revisiting the Kill or Be Killed first record and was like, fuck, man, this record's so good, and just... I didn't know if we'd ever get another one. So it was kind of surprising when this came through our email, and I was like, fuck, like, this is great, because like I've been really in a Kill or Be Killed mood as of late, and I'm interested to see where the band picks up, all these years later. And the thing, and I say it right away, but it can't be understated. This just made news today, as of when we're recording, that both Troy and Greg echo the sentiments I say to Ben, where I'm like, this record feels more cohesive than the last record as a whole, and in some cases, some of the last couple of records that some of these other bands have put out together.
It's almost like because we all know about the local super group, right? You know how you take a bunch of local bands and you put them together and you make the local super group, and then that band ends up becoming popular, and nobody ever hears about the bands that those other guys were in. Yeah, exactly. So like, but like, yeah, Kill or Be Killed is like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of these guys, especially like Greg from Dillinger, like, I don't know. It's almost like starting over to an extent. And so like their best stuff is just right out there.
Yeah, this Kill or Be Killed record is stupidly good. That first song straight out the gate out of the record, I was like, this could, if this doesn't sell you on wanting to hear the rest of the record, then I don't know what will. The twists and turns that it takes, like I said, it feels more cohesive in the fact that it feels like a band who kind of is playing off of a lot of the influences, which, between Mastodon and Soulfly and Dillinger Escape Plan, you could just go in a million directions and then throw in Converge and Mutoid Man, and you're really just going all over the place. But like a song, like even the last song, like I was saying, Reluctant Hero, I didn't see that song coming. It's a really kind of weird, brooding song that kind of takes you a lot of different directions. And the way that it ends the record, you're just kind of like, huh, again.
Well, and you know what it reminds me of too, and it's not even like musically similar, but I haven't been this excited about a supergroup since United Nations, even though United Nations technically wasn't allowed to tell us who was in the band, but it was very obvious. But yeah, I haven't been this excited about a supergroup type project because typically I don't take bands like this seriously, if I'm being honest. It might be cool, a lot of the time, but usually it just ends up being a whole bunch of dudes that are in established bands competing for the limelight. Whereas with this band, it sounds like a brand new band. Brand new band, and that's what I love about it is you have familiar vocals, with Greg and all that, but it's awesome. I don't even know how else to explain it. It's just it makes me super happy.
We've already blabbed long enough on this, so let's get into my conversation with Ben from Kill or Be Killed, and we'll talk to you on the other side of it.
Hey, is this Ben?
Yes, this is Ben. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Just making sure that maybe there's not a delay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sometimes there is, and sometimes these AirPods can be a little temperamental, so.
Okay. Well, worst case, if I accidentally cut you off, I'll apologize now ahead of time.
Yeah, same here. Well, you sound nice and clear to me, so.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, that's half the fun of spending all this money on quote-unquote nice gear is you hope it sounds good.
Yeah, gear has been a struggle for the past 7 months for me, for sure. Trying to do all the remote, quarantine type shit.
Yeah, it's this whole thing has just been a fucking nightmare for everyone in the industry, depending on if you're doing it from my perspective of, trying to get people and, lock them down, or from your perspective of probably having to record remotely or doing whatever it is that everyone's doing currently. So it's been a real clusterfuck.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, I'll get right into it so I don't take up too much of your afternoon there.
Cool.
And it is Koller, right? Or Koller?
Koller, yeah, like coals on the grill.
See, that's the problem is I grew up in the East Coast, but I live in the Midwest, so now my vowels, I'm really unsure of how to pronounce things because either version of where I've lived has informed me of how I should say it.
Yeah, I guess you can just use your local dialect and just go with it and stick to it, right? I find myself reverting to Massachusetts speak often. Instead of if someone's talking about Pakistan, I say fucking Pakistan, dude. Pakistan.
I just had to go back to Delaware for a funeral a couple of weeks ago, and I grew up in Delaware. That's where I'm originally from, and it probably took me half a day to start, falling back into some of my East Coast isms and so forth. And, I draw the line at saying wooder and roof and all that kind of stuff. But the one that always gives me away is when you say ass, or, you kind of get a couple drinks in me and some of it comes out.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Once you go back, it just happens. I mean, for me, it happens instantly, especially if I'm around someone with a real thick Massachusetts accent. It's fun. It's fun talking like that. I mean, it's ridiculous. Have you seen the Casey Affleck Dunkin' Donuts skit on SNL?
Oh yeah.
It's just talking like that it's amazing. And if you have that in you, you feel like you need to let it out. So water that's a Delaware thing. Water.
I guess because it's really funny because my wife has lived in Michigan her whole life, and when I've gone back or when I've had to visit, my mom's side of the family over there, it always kind of turns into this thing where she's like, why does it feel so southern down here? And I was like, I don't know, but sweet tea is real big, almost so a pound of sugar in it and stuff like that. And it gets kind of really southern, people will say water and roof and stuff like that. And, then, even going, it's so weird because I've talked about how I don't feel like there's, the further away from east you go, you don't necessarily get as many dialects in one area. But I mean, think about how, Massachusetts people talk. You got the Philly accent, you got, all these kind of different dialects
it's such a small like hours drive away from each other, and it's really kind of interesting sometimes when you start noticing it. And swearing is almost just like a paint or like art form in and of itself when you get down there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing about touring the U.S. for so long and just seeing all the 50 states is it really is just so different. It is like 50 countries, and it's just so funny the little differences that people choose to take on. You know, like like the Dunkin' Donuts thing in Massachusetts, like what the fuck is, like, what is that? Like, why does everyone like Dunkin' Donuts so much, and why are there so many? Like, it doesn't really make any sense to me. It's just a thing. It's just how it is there. Like you said, with sweet tea, like in some places, people are just fucking obsessed with sweet tea. Or like in New Jersey, it's like Wawa. Oh yeah, dude.
Oh,
Wawa.
dude, I'm a huge Wawa fan.
Like, I love Wawa.
I have a Wawa tattoo.
Do you really?
I do. I have a giant Wawa like across my left forearm.
Amazing. I would get a Wawa tattoo for sure.
Hey, you know what? And I always joke with people because, like, band people, you know, they're kind of divided. It's either you're into Buc-ee's, you're into Sheetz, or you're into Wawa. And it's one of those things where I legitimately think the only thing people like about Sheetz is the Boom Boom sauce. And people aren't, you know, they just don't want to admit it.
Ooh, Boom Boom sauce. I don't know about Boom Boom sauce. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they all have their merits, right? I mean, Buc-ee's is incredible. That is a great place.
But I feel like we could just go on and on about East Coast stuff. I will say one thing, too, that, you know, you just kind of reminded me of, because I was telling my wife, you know, who I was talking to, and I was like, oh, it's a fellow East Coaster. I was like, I don't know if, you know, I've never heard to him referred by, you know, friends in the industry or anything as like a masshole, but like, I definitely have masshole friends. And she's like, yeah, I remember the first time you said that. And I was like, what the fuck is a masshole? And I was like, that's just a term of endearment for people down in Mass.
Yep. And like being out in California, you know, if someone sees you with a, you know, a Red Sox hat and they're from Boston or from Massachusetts, like most of the time they just have to come up and be like, fuck yes, Boston. Like, yep, masshole. And like, you know, we have to recognize each other and just give a little shout out every time. You know, Massachusetts license plate, just give a little nod, like, fuck yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I know I'll have you for a little bit longer. Have the pleasure of talking to Ben Koller, depending on how and where you're from. That'll be how you pronounce it. A lot of you probably are aware of him for being the drummer for Mutoid Man, Converge, but we're here today to talk about the new Killer Be Killed record, Reluctant Hero, which is out November 20th via Nuclear Blast Records. I gotta say, I have been looking forward to this record for a very long time, and have to say that there is just something about this record that immediately upon starting Deconstruction Self-Destruction that just feels more cohesive than the last record. Was this kind of maybe a byproduct of you guys maybe spending more time with each other or just kind of growing your connections with each other since the first record came out?
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'm very excited about it too. It's been a long time, you know, we've spent really long time making this record, and it's finally happening. I'm so stoked. But yeah, I mean, we did one tour together in 2015 in Australia when I was just filling in, and just the vibe was really good. You know, personally and musically, we just, you know, fit together very well. And I think after that tour, we knew that, you know, we wanted to do more, and that kind of, you know, was the spark that lit the fire under our ass to get this record going. But, you know, it took that long to get it all together because we're so busy with our other bands and we're all over the country. And so we had to do it in these little piecemeal sessions where, you know, we'd get together in Phoenix at Max's rehearsal space, or, you know, Greg and I would get together in LA for a couple of days, and then we'd all get together in LA and, you know, just sort of whenever we had time, we would all just meet somewhere and to get together. Because with this band, it was really all about being in the room and feeding off of each other, you know, very, very fun, very vibe oriented. And that's how we had to get the songs done, you know, so we couldn't like write the songs remotely where, you know, Greg just had an entire song mapped out and said, okay, here's the song. And then we go in the studio and we just record it. It wasn't like that at all. You know, we needed to really work it out together in a room. And I think that's one of the reasons why it took such a long time. But it's finally here. It's finally done. I'm so pumped on it. Like, I couldn't be happier with it. I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah, very stoked.
It's a really great record, and I really do feel like it has that live in the room kind of feel to it. Like, these songs have been worked on, and there's just it's a little bit more tighter, but while also being a little bit more loose, if that makes any sense. And I just, you know, it's interesting as I kind of kept thinking about it. It's like, it reminds me of a lot of the records that I feel like everyone in the band has collectively made over the years, because, you know, you guys have been in the industry for so long and have kind of come up when you had to record things together, and it wasn't like I'll send you my part, or I'm going to the studio this day. It was let's all get in there and kind of work together and make a collaborative effort to put out a solid album.
Yeah, for sure. It's very much a culmination of, you know, all of our tastes, all of our influences, and also, you know, just liking each other's bands as well, and knowing, you know, what each other's strengths are based on what we know about each other musically. And so it all just felt very natural, and there was no filter like, oh, this sounds too rock, or this sounds too, like, I don't know, this sounds too new metal, or this sounds too death metal, or whatever. Like, it was very much just play whatever the fuck we want because it's fun. And it doesn't matter that one song kind of sounds like, you know, Judas Priest and AC/DC meets Smashing Pumpkins, and then this song sounds like Deftones meets Slayer or something like that. Like, it was just kind of do whatever. And we just worked it out, you know, that way.
You know, you had kind of talked a little bit ago about how you came on after the first record had already been recorded. So kind of wondering, you know, you kind of, you know, knowing the guys and kind of maybe coming on, not quote unquote as a fan, but just kind of as someone who, you know, liked the material and wanted to be a part of this. Did you kind of want to bring something a little different drumming wise to the table that maybe wasn't expressed on the previous album?
Yeah, you know, I didn't want to like pretend to be something I'm not or anything. You know, I wanted to just, you know, do sort of what I do. And I think that's why the guys, you know, brought me on, because, you know, they sort of know my style and what I'm like. And so I just tried to, you know, bring my whole vibe to the table. And on the first record, it was really, really tough to fill those shoes with Dave Elitch. So I did my best and, you know, learned the parts, not note for note, but learned the structure, and then sort of brought my own thing to it, you know, because, you know, we're just, you know, every drummer's different. And so I just tried to bring, you know, my own sort of style to this record, and we all seem to get along really well musically. So I think it worked out nicely.
Yeah. Kind of speaking to something, you know, as you sort of hinted at a little bit ago, the title track itself, I think, is a really cool song to end the record on, and really showcases a really different side of the band that we haven't really heard at the time. Do you have kind of an interesting story of how that song came to be?
Yeah, that song was one of the last songs that came together. That one was sort of written in the studio. It was a sort of a basic idea and structure that Troy had. And it was one of those things where we didn't even know if it was going to make it on the record. And once we started noodling around with it in the studio, we started to realize that we needed to arrange this and we needed to make it happen. And so it mostly came together just, you know, acoustic guitars, you know, some quiet jamming in the studio, and then piecing it together, you know, in the control room and in the live room. And yeah, I thought it came out really great. And I think, like a lot of other songs on the record, you know, vocally, I feel like the guys really took a lot more chances than maybe they usually would in their other bands. And that was really cool to see, and really, really surprising to me.
Yeah, it was upon first listen, I was just kind of like, you know, especially after where some of the, you know, you have Animus, which is like a is what it is, you know, just a 1 minute kind of song. And so as you're kind of getting to the end of the record and you see like, oh, there's like a 6 minute song, and, you know, From a Crowded Wound also is kind of a longer song as well. It's just kind of like, okay, where's this going? You know, because the record kind of takes you all over. So the way it starts and kind of how it ends, and just how it ends the record, is just kind of like, wow, that's a really interesting, cool way to end the record, and kind of has me interested to see, you know, whenever the next record or whatever you guys do comes out, to see if maybe that informs you guys to take some more risks, kind of going in something in that territory.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the closest thing to I think a power ballad that I've ever been a part of. So I was super, super stoked on that. Yeah, good way to end the record. Nice, you know, epic, cathartic, you know, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, the record definitely goes in a bunch of different directions, and I feel like that was a nice way to just cap it off.
You know, in listening to this and seeing the buzz, you know, basically about this album getting ready to come out and the few songs that have come out as of when we're recording, you know, the term quote unquote supergroup keeps getting thrown around, obviously, given the pedigree of who's in the band. And, you know, the thing that's kind of interesting about it is I feel like, unlike a lot of those other bands that you hear from so much of, well, you know, would love to do it again, we just don't have the time. And you keep seeing these news articles popping up, and you're like, well, what the fuck is the point of talking about it when nothing's going on? And adversely, everyone in the band did the exact opposite. Like, none of us knew that this was coming until you basically had the record done and you were ready to share it with everyone. Was that a very collective idea of just letting the music speak for itself versus doing years and years of lip service with nothing to show for it?
Yeah, and it was especially important to sort of keep it secret for a while because we really had no idea when it would be that we would finish it. And so the thinking was that, we don't want to start talking about this, in 2017 when we don't know if it's going to come out until 2021 or 2020 or whenever. And so we just thought, let's just take it at our own pace. We don't have anyone to answer to. We don't have any deadlines. We know that we're all busy. We're gonna get to this when we can, and when it's ready, when it's done, then we'll sort of unleash it. And so yeah, that was the plan.
It's a really kind of refreshing to actually not put the cart before the horse, so to speak, in that realm or that situation. So it's just refreshing, like I said, that it was like, instead of you guys being like, we're working and it'll come out whenever it comes out. It's like, no, we're done. Here it is, and now we can talk about it. And it's like, that's so nice.
Yeah, totally. And now it feels good to be talking about it. It feels right. And yeah, we feel like a band now. It doesn't feel like a project or a supergroup or whatever. I mean, I think that's just a term that people throw around just because it's, people in other bands. I remember when I started Mutoid Man, they called it a supergroup. I'm like, this is just me and like my buddy Steve. We're jamming in Brooklyn in a practice space that's like the size of a shoebox. Like this ain't a supergroup, man. This is like two dudes jamming. It's not a supergroup. But yeah, it's just funny. That term is thrown around pretty loosely.
Yeah, and yeah, I'll just leave it at that. The guys you recorded with Josh Wilbur, who I would say in the last handful of years has really become kind of one of the go-to producers for metal. Obviously working with Gojira and Lamb of God and kind of, putting I hate to say a more polished sound on metal, but giving it, I would almost say he's kind of become the Adam D, of the last, probably 10 years or so of the scene. How did you like working with Josh, and maybe what are some things that you were able to take away with working from him?
Oh, I absolutely loved working with Josh. The guys had a pretty positive experience with the first record, so they wanted to get him on board again, and I'm so glad they did because he's a great producer. He's a great engineer. He works really quickly. He's just so skilled with piecing things together and just hearing the whole piece and knowing, what should go where and having really great suggestions and a lot of common references. I was surprised. We were talking about a drum fill. I'm like, oh, what about this one? He's like, oh, that's the Snapcase Caboose fill. I'm like, dude, like, yes, it is. Like, exactly. Like, yeah, yeah, that's fucking Snapcase Caboose. And that kind of stuff really makes a big difference. It makes the process a lot smoother, when you have that sort of common ground of just like sort of knowing, the musical taste stuff and the reference stuff. And so, yeah, I was blown away by Josh. I think he did such a great job. Really, really happy to have him on board.
Yeah, the record sounds great, no surprise. And as I kept listening to everything, I was like, everything just sounds so well mixed that there's nothing fighting for your attention as you're listening to it. It just sounds great, which is honestly sometimes not as easy as it would seem to be when, dealing with metal or, in the subsequent other genres of it. Yeah, for sure. It can be really hard to find, space because everyone just really wants to, have everything clipping in the red the whole time. And, vocals overlapping, but the one line of the vocal starts before the last line ends, and just everyone sort of playing over each other and overplaying and just mastering it in the red. And it was really great, even just in the room. I mean, the mixing, like when it came time to mix, we really didn't have to do much because just the sounds we got in the room were already fantastic. He had it dialed in so good in the studio, so it was really painless, and it made it, actually fun for a change. Because, the recording process can be a little unfun sometimes, or, painstaking, start going a little crazy and, long days. And this really didn't feel like that. It felt really natural and really fun. Out of curiosity, I know obviously, like you said, you had to kind of record this in various times. How long do you think you actually spent tracking your drums for this? Because sometimes you hear people who are like, yeah, I banged out all my drum tracks in like 2 or 3 days, and you're like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think the drum tracking took maybe, I think it was like a day of getting sounds and maybe another 5 days of tracking. So it wasn't too bad. I mean, usually that's usually how long it takes me to do a record is somewhere around a week. Yeah, drum tones on the Sound Killer. So it was just like one of those where it's like, oh, was this like a, like something that really blew my mind was watching a Seven Dust documentary a long time ago and seeing, because, like Morgan, I think has a really great sound in the way he plays, just his style. And I always thought Seven Dust has great drum sounds. And then watching a documentary, it was like, we're just doing the hi-hat, the kick, and the snare, and we're just kind of doing the song, and that's all we're doing. And I was like, holy shit, you know what I mean? That's not, like, what I'm hearing isn't just solely, like, him playing the full song as is. It's like, we're going to take little pieces and kind of work and build our way through the whole song and kind of give everything its due. And I was like, that's seemingly not very common, but maybe that is something that a lot of people actually do, and you just don't hear about it as much.
Yeah, I think everyone has their process, and I usually like to trust the engineer or the producer if they know the room and they know the gear. And so, I had my Tama kit, and then Josh had his own sort of cymbal selection that he knew sounded good, and so we went with like his selections for that. And it worked out perfectly because he knew the room and he knew what sounded good. It's like the microphones and the sound of the room and the different filters you put on it and the tuning and everything. If you know the gear and you know the room, then it's good to just trust the engineer and trust that he knows what he's doing. And so I think that worked out really good.
Absolutely. Kind of as we're slowly wrapping up, we've been seeing and hearing about a lot of bands getting really creative with the time that they now suddenly have. Especially around album releases. I think literally today, Seven Dust is going to be doing a live stream of their new record. With the album release still a little bit away as of when we're recording, are you guys planning on doing something special for this release, or is it just kind of going to be dropped and, that's going to kind of be it?
We're not really sure. We're kind of just playing it by ear. Now it's just waiting for the release and, doing press and stuff like this and, just getting behind the hype machine, so to speak. But we've talked about some live stream stuff. We got together recently and shot a couple videos. So, we do have some videos coming out. But yeah, as far as live performance, we just don't know. We haven't really talked about, a touring schedule or anything like that, just because we don't want to plan something and then have it not happen. It's still not clear as to when we can even plan to do stuff like that. But, you could see some kind of live stream coming from us maybe one day. We don't really know. Just play it by ear for now.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of the interesting thing about, this band in particular is a lot of us have been clamoring to see you play in live in some capacity at this point. So it's just one of those where it's like you said, you only did like the Australian tour, which was very brief. And so a lot of people are probably like itching to finally see you guys play. And, I'm interested to see, because when the band played, I was expecting it to be sort of akin to the, how it was in the video where Greg's playing guitar and singing and so forth. And then you guys play and Greg's a traditional frontman, which was not what I was expecting at the time. So it's just kind of interesting to see what the live will look like now. If Greg will maybe be more of a instrumentalist as well as a frontman, kind of like what Chino does on occasion during their sets or whatever, or if he's just solely going to be, the frontman of the band and there'll be an ancillary musician playing with you guys.
Yeah, when we toured Australia, we had our friend Juan Montoya playing guitar also. So there were moments when Max was maybe supposed to be playing, but he just wanted to throw up his arms and scream at the crowd, and so he could. and so you had Juan playing the parts also, and if Greg felt like throwing the guitar down and jumping in the crowd, he could. So it's possible we'd have another guitarist just there to sort of fill up the space when the other guys want to go off and do their frontman thing. But nobody is more excited to go on tour than us. So as soon as it's clear, like we definitely have plans to get out there and play as much as we're able with all the other bands and all the stuff we have going on. But yeah, definitely plans to get out there ASAP.
Kind of one of the last questions I have for you, given that, we are all currently in this pandemic and, touring isn't really a thing currently, we're seeing a lot of people writing more and kind of coming out with EPs and so forth. I just, got an email that apparently Soilworks already got some new material they're getting ready to come out with. It's been a few years at this point since, your two other bands, Converge and Mutoid Man, have, released some new music. Has this time given you some more time to work on anything new for either of those projects or maybe something entirely new altogether?
Yeah, Converge, actually, we have a ton of stuff ready to go. We just need to get in the studio and sort of hash it out. I think right now I'm at the point where I'm just ready to move on and start doing stuff because I'm going crazy here, not being able to tour and stuff. So I'm ready to fly back to Massachusetts and, safely, obviously, and get some stuff done. So Converge has stuff. Mutoid Man basically has a whole record ready to go, and we just have to get in the studio, find the time. But, it's a weird time, and, there's a lot of weird life stuff going on, and yeah, it's just very strange. I'm definitely stoked to record stuff, but yeah, it's a really weird time right now. But yeah, expect new material. It's coming. Maybe slowly, but it's coming.
Yeah, it's just been one of those things where, like I said, you're seeing, some people, like Every Time I Die, have a record and they're just very adamant about not putting it out until they can tour behind it, which totally understandable. Then you've seen bands like, I just talked to Frank from Hatebreed yesterday, and, they pushed their record back hoping that tours would continue and that they could put out the record and then tour behind it. So you're kind of just seeing a lot of different, mindsets of how to traverse this uncharted territory that we're all kind of in, where it's like, well, do you release something, and then if it does and it quote unquote doesn't do well because people don't have the money or are just, hey, I got this new record and now I'm already over it, like now the next thing, like what is the quote unquote right way to do something? And it's been interesting to kind of talk to some of the musicians and industry people and being like, well, how are you guys doing this, and what is kind of some of the behind the scenes conversations looking like to how to be as effective during this as you can?
Yeah, it's really bizarre, man. I've had all kinds of conversations with, everyone I work with, and all these different ideas have been thrown around over the past 7 months. I've had talks about this, no latency jamming software that might be coming out, but that hasn't happened yet because it's the technology seemingly isn't quite there yet. So people can't really play live, computer to computer, or from East Coast to West Coast, for example, with no latency. I know a lot of people have been working on that. I've talked to people who have had ideas for virtual festivals, which seem like kind of a cool idea. Like you go into a different room and there's a band playing, like there's a pre-recorded stream, you can pay for that. And then there's like a virtual merch table, et cetera, et cetera. But I haven't really seen that pan out yet. I've talked to people who are working on like a video game with a music festival inside the video game and like all kinds of shit. But I mean, right now I'm just sort of ready to just do as much as I can. If that involves traveling, then so be it. But I feel like the waiting, I don't know, the waiting around game is just getting way too old for me, and I'm just ready to do as much as possible. I've been doing these little collaborations here and there, doing a lot of 2 minutes to late night videos, starting new, like little new projects, new bands, and trying to write as much as I can remotely, trying to record stuff in my rehearsal studio at home on my electronic kit. As frustrating as it is, I'm just trying to do as much as I can whenever I can.
Yeah, I think that's been the interesting thing during all of this. I did a bunch of traveling right before all this happened. Went to New Orleans, went to Vegas like in December-ish or around now-ish, and then New Orleans, and then went to Atlanta about like a month and a half ago, and then I had to go back home, like I said, to Delaware for a funeral. And it's been kind of interesting to go to a couple of different areas and just kind of see how everyone's sort of dealing with this. Like I think my time in Atlanta was pretty wild because like I almost thought there was a ordinance that I hadn't heard of where everyone just had to wear masks straight up everywhere, like not even like if you're just walking on the sidewalk, like people had them on, which was pretty awesome to see. But then, going back east and going to the beach and, beaches were, not super packed, but there are still people around trying to abide as much as you can with the, social distancing and so forth. And, going to a couple restaurants where they're, half capacity or whatever. But I kind of get the feeling for myself that it's just one of those where it's like if everyone just tries to use as much of the precautions as possible and are implemented state to state and so forth, then eventually we just kind of need to start living the quote unquote new normal, and whatever kind of is going to happen, because I feel like you just can't just sit in your house all day every day for a year or whatever. Like that's also not really healthy either.
No, yeah, I feel like this has ruined a lot of people and ruined a lot of businesses, and to think that this could go on for another year. I mean, if we're at more cases per day than ever. Like it's basically like we're still at square one. And so, what are people going to do with another year of this? I mean, it's not possible to go on like this. I mean, the country will be absolutely destroyed if we try to keep this up. I mean, yeah, we have to go about our business, safely, obviously, but I don't know what would happen to people after another year of this. I mean, I think it would be completely devastating.
Yeah. I think there's a conversation there that would be fun to have, but that gets, starting to get into realms where people get a little uncomfortable with some of the things you start talking about, especially I think one of my biggest things is that has been, my wife works in the pharmaceutical industry, and at one point she was like, why are some of these other countries getting a better handle on this than us? And I go, because the other countries don't have the different sections of politics the way we do, where it's like, okay, in Michigan, our governor says this, go to Texas and they're completely different. And you don't have that same kind of a structure somewhere else where it's like, got one person, they say this and everyone obliges for the most part. So that's sort of where it gets tricky for us as the U.S., I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of sad how divided we are. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think I'm getting another call for another podcast. So I'm sorry about that.
Nope,
but
you're good.
Yeah, we won't get into it.
Yep. Well, and real quickly, just to end it, where can everyone find you or the band? And we'll end it there.
KillerBeKilled.com, and we're on Instagram and Twitter and all that shit. So yeah, find us there, and pre-order the record. And we worked really, really hard on it for a long time, and we're so excited for you to hear it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh yeah, thank you, man. It was fun. All right, cheers. Bye.
So that was my conversation with Ben Koller, drummer for Killer Be Killed. Again, their upcoming record, Reluctant Hero, is out November 20th via Nuclear Blast Records. It is worth picking up. So you still have time as of when this is dropping to pre-order the record. Do it. It is that fucking good. Again, I got it for free and then placed a pre-order for it. So if I'm willing to part with my money when I already have it for free, you should do the same. Definitely support these bands, especially bands that may or may not, come around very often. Obviously, this isn't anyone's full-time project. So, and especially given the world we're in currently, I definitely don't want to say that the window to see a Killer Be Killed live stream or whatever, or see them live in general, is going to be slim and none. But Mastodon's already going in the studio, I think, this week as of when we're recording. I'm sure there's probably actually a new Soulfly record probably about ready to drop at this point. I think it's been about 2 years since the last one.
Yeah, we'll have to get Max back again.
Yeah, and Greg already dropped his solo record, and as you heard, Ben said there's pretty much new Mutoid Man and Converge music ready to be recorded. It just has to be recorded. I assume someone's going to pick that up. So thanks for anyone listening to this after the fact. I'm excited, actually, I think, to see where Converge goes in 2020 and or 2021, depending on when this music gets written. I feel like Jacob Bannon is somebody, and I'll even say Kurt as well,
who's also in a supergroup now too.
That is true. Jacob?
Yeah,
he's in like 2 or 3.
I'm talking about specifically the death metal one. I don't remember what they're called right now. The band I'm thinking of is definitely death metal. Yeah.
So obviously with those bands potentially making some new music here to end the year and or being released in the next year, very much a lot to look forward to. If you would like to keep up with Killer Be Killed, very simple. Facebook, Killer Be Killed. Instagram, Killer Be Killed. And guess what? Twitter, same, Killer Be Killed. If you would like to keep up with Ben on Instagram, it is Benjamin Koller, and Twitter at Ben Koller. So pretty simple there. Pick up this record again, November 20th, Nuclear Blast Records. This is, like I said, probably going to be in my top 10. Sounds like it's going to be in Dan's. It would have been in Dan's top 5 if he had heard it at the time. So,
oh my God, right? It's so funny too, because I left out the new Hum record in my top 5, which is just like an absolute sin. For some reason, it just didn't enter my mind. I got so into talking about metal releases and doing a whole, nah, look at me, I get records before they come out. Yeah, but like I can't pay my electric bill, like that sort of stuff. Like, what good is getting the albums for free if you have no electricity to listen to them on any kind of device?
Well, you just like a challenge is all I'm hearing.
Absolutely, man. Bring it on. Life, let's go. Let's try it out.
And speaking of trying it out, let's try out where Dan can be found across the interwebs. And that would be...
Well, I can be found on discussmetal.com. I can be found at twitch.tv/discussmetaldan. I don't know if that'll take you right there or not, but just search for Discuss Metal Dan. My dumb face will pop up. I'll be playing Doom. I'll be screaming at the screen. I'll be super, super upset. It'll be super dark in my creepy basement. You'll love it. But on top of that, I also do 2 other podcasts podcast called Discography Discussion and Discuss Metal, and they are at discussmetal.com. So, there's plenty of me out there on the internet. Almost too much.
And if you would like to keep up with all things this podcast, it is simple enough. BREWspeakPod.com. That is the landing page for anything you would want to know about our podcast. And you can find such things as some of our friends' podcasts, like Good Company with Bowling. You can find Daniel Terry and all of his other podcasts. You can find Talk to Me, which I don't know if Talk to Me is still going. I think now it's Drag the Waters. Sure. I think Drag the Waters is actually the new podcast thing. I don't know.
Yeah, he's really into the Drag the Waters. Shout out to Matt Nas and the Roach Coach podcast.
They're not two people like I thought they were, so...
No, absolutely not. But I mean, if you want to get your new metal fix, man, Roach Coach is where it's at.
And last but not least, let's get into our sponsors. You can head over to the Bean Bastard and get you some awesome coffee. If that is your thing, they have a brick and mortar down in the Buffalo, New York area that plays 80s, movies. I think during this past month, they were playing a lot of 80s horror movies, which looked awesome. Really big shout out to those guys. I really do need to try to get them to come on and do something with us for one of these, because there's just the story. I mean, if you haven't gone and heard the episode I did with Nicholas Maruso from It Dies Today about his sobriety and basically at that time, the very, very beginnings of what would become the Bean Bastard. So obviously lots to catch up on. And it's been crazy to see what they've done. In my trip to Buffalo, they were just basically trying to find, like they would go to craft things at this hotel that would basically house like mom and pop people doing, I made, a live, laugh, love thing, or I made, crochet or whatever. And then, there are those guys singing their coffee. And it was really cool to see them just constantly like being busy and selling and all that kind of stuff. And, definitely one of those things. If you are a DIY kind of person, the story is very inspiring. So definitely need to get those guys back on and kind of catch back up with what they've been doing since we had them on the podcast.
Maybe I'll actually get some coffee out of it.
Yeah, maybe. I always end up giving it away or drinking it.
And drinking it, yeah, I know. I feel you. I get it, man. And it's fine because I'm that guy that didn't ever send your corn record back. So I mean, I know what I did.
Hey, it's just like Rockin' Pod.
It's pretty much just like Rockin' Pod. Oh my god.
Anyway, if you would like to keep up
with enough time to talk about that tonight.
If you would like to keep up with our other sponsor, On Point Pomade, head over to onpointpomade.com. Use the code BSP15 and get 15% off your total purchase order. Keep your hair and beard looking on point. Last but not least, rockabilia.com. Head on over there and you will see over 500,000 items of all kinds between pop culture things, bands of so many different genres. Pretty much, if you have heard of the band on this show, chances are there is something of theirs over on rockabilia.com. And the awesome thing is everything is 100% officially licensed through the bands. So not only when you buy something from them are you supporting Rockabilia, but you're supporting the bands that you love. And that's really important during these tough times to support the bands that you love. So head on over to rockabilia.com, use our code BREW15, get 15% off your total purchase order. And for the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, I am John.
And I am Dan.
We will talk to you all next time.
Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Coach, what'd you think? Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay, I thought we were gonna get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks. But you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. It will result in less listens. You're going to see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're going to see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet. And I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you, don't use this fucking riff. It sucks. But it's yours.